top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Floyd Mayweather versus Money Kicks exhibition bout is off after breakdown of talks with YouTube star. But 50-0 boxing legend is still looking to fight again.
Thought he said he wasn't going to do any more of these after the Logan Paul exhibition bout.
The exhibition fight between Floyd Mayweather and YouTube star Money Kicks is off, according to reports. The fight was set to take place atop the Burj Al Arab in Dubai on February 20th and a stunning setting for the boxing legend's latest money-spinning bout.
He's clout-chasing influencers now because no boxing fan is interested in these exhibition matches.
These exhibition bouts, however, multiple sources have confirmed that talks have broken down with claims from Mirror Fighting that the fight is now off. It's believed Mayweather still hopes to take part in an exhibition, but no opponent has been confirmed, just 12 days out from the event.
Well, I don't imagine Jake Paul saying Floyd still owes him money is helping the situation.
Logan Paul, who has a bigger social media following than Money Kicks does. Logan Paul, who's been quite vocal that Floyd Mayweather stiffed him on whatever cash he was intended to make from their exhibition bout. I don't imagine that's helping Floyd's situation. The pristine 50-0 boxing legend announced the event at a press conference on New Year's Eve in Dubai and refused to rule out Money Kicks as a possible opponent at the time. The 20-year-old social media sensation's real name, Reshad Belhassa, the son of billionaire Saif Belhassa, confirmed a deal was close. It's believed he will now try to fight later this year when Tom Khan's social knockout promotion returns. Mayweather, who turns 45 at the end of February, retired a 4-weight world champion, 5-weight world champion, and has been doing exhibition fights for the past couple of years.
It's seeming more and more like he's doing them from a need rather than a want.
Rich guys want to stay rich, and I understand that. A guy that's accustomed to making a lot of money wants to keep making a lot of money, though Floyd's modus operandi, clout-chasing social media influencers.
Because that's what he's doing. He's doing it because they have an audience of their own.
And he hopes to capitalize off of their audience, their following, because his following primarily was comprised of boxing fans who want to see actual boxing matches, not pointless exhibition bouts with non-fighters, social media influencers. You can't hope to score big off of the boxing fans anymore because you're not boxing with boxers. So you're seeking out these social media influencers.
Of course, you figure their fans will pay for these exhibition bouts in all the ways a boxing fan would. Boxing fans are not interested in this stuff.
You got enough boxing fans, regular boxing fans in reference to regular boxing matches that are fed up with inflated pay-per-view prices and the frequency of pay-per-views in the American market, let alone a retired boxer who's keeping busy with social media influencers. Boxing fans are not going to pay to see that.
So what Floyd wants is to capitalize off of someone else's audience, someone else's fans.
Legalized bank robberies, as Mayweather calls them, began with the destruction of Japanese kickboxer Tenshin Nasukawa on New Year's Eve in 2018. Logan Paul got the next crack at Mayweather in the summer of 2021 and managed to go the full 8 rounds with the former 4-weight champion. He's a 5-weight champion. Mayweather doubted whether he would box again immediately after the Paul fight, but now the American has been training like a madman, and he's gotten the itch to fight again. Most importantly, there's money to be made for Mayweather, and recently he's been called out by old foe Oscar De La Hoya. And you know what? At this point, given Floyd's reputation, the way Logan's been dragging his name through the mud, and Jake,
tack on the collapse of the Money Kicks fight,
Oscar De La Hoya might actually be his best option at this point. Floyd Mayweather has about 3 lawsuits pending, 2 that are reportedly with former business associates of his.
Joseph Englenoff and that entire ticket scalping fiasco.
We talked about that here on the channel. And Logan Paul, who for some reason says that Floyd still hasn't paid him for their exhibition bout last year, where you would have thought that Logan's payment would have been coming from the network that aired the pay-per-view. You would have thought Logan's money would have been coming from Showtime.
Not Floyd Mayweather Jr. himself. Why would Floyd be the one that has to pay him?
Those lawsuits are still pending. No damages have been awarded to Joseph Englenoff or Logan Paul yet, though this is particularly damaging to Floyd's reputation. Now, outside looking in, I don't know that Logan's lawsuit had anything to do with the Money Kicks situation, though it does seem like doing business with Floyd these days isn't a good idea, and Money Kicks may have inadvertently dodged a bullet with this exhibition match's collapse. Money Kicks ain't got the following that Logan Paul has. He just doesn't. so it can't help Floyd's situation moving forward, doing business with these YouTube influencers and social media stars.
But one of the biggest names in social media is accusing him of being a crook.
After having done business with him, that can't be helping Floyd's situation.
We hear less and less about Floyd's promotional company and boxing.
We don't hear of Mayweather Promotions signing blue-chip prospects like Keyshawn Davis, young promising fighters they're grooming to be the next wave of pound-for-pound stars in the sport of boxing. We don't hear about that so much as...
Floyd's boxing a kangaroo on top of the Empire State Building.
After that, he's going to wrestle a bear in a tub of mayonnaise.
Thousand Island dressing.
You just get the sense that business may not be on the up and up. You just get the sense that everything really isn't as it seems with Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s finances in spite of his reputation.
Listen, Floyd's not the first boxer to stage celebrity exhibition matches.
If I'm being honest, he's not the first rich guy that had several lawsuits levied against him, several lawsuits pending. It happens every day, happens all the time. If he is in fact in dire financial straits, he won't be the first insanely rich guy that potentially loses it all. That happens all the time as well. In other news, per tweet from Michael Benson, Tyson Fury had this to say. He says, "It's quite clear to see now that Jake needs Tommy Fury because Jake Paul did 60,000 buys against his last opponent, which is pathetic. If he'd have fought Tommy, it would have been in the millions. We know who needs who, and yet it's not Jake Paul kicking down your guy's door for an opportunity. Your brother, Tommy Fury, Tommy Fumbles. It's not Jake kicking down his door to reschedule the fight. It's the other way around. You guys can't stop talking about him. And it doesn't help Tommy's image as a serious professional, a serious boxer that...
I mean, what the hell is going on with Tommy Fury's boxing career anyway?
You know, I wasn't against Jake Paul boxing Tommy Fury because as professionals, they have similar records. They are in a very similar place. Thus, the fight is a sensical fight for Jake to actually swap punches with an actual boxer. Though it's not Jake Paul's fault that Tommy Fury fell ill or whatever the hell happened. I mean, it really isn't. And the moment that Tommy Fury started talking about money, that's when Tommy lost me. The moment Tommy started talking about this fight like it was some kind of fucking super fight.
Did you guys forget that before he pulled out of the fight, there was a haggling situation between both teams?
Tommy Fury, he was belly aching about the money, what money was on the table for him to box Jake Paul, and eventually the fight got done. But I didn't forget that. And you know, most boxers with a record like Tommy's, the very beginning of their careers, they're not making 6- and 7-figure paydays. So the fact that he was actually moaning about this, the boxer YouTuber.
I thought you was a serious professional. What are you moaning about?
What are you trying to convince me of? That old fish ice Frank Warren's been paying you through the nose to box the kind of guys that you've been boxing?
So that you could get into a haggling situation with Jake Paul.
We know who has the bigger following between them, between Tommy Fury and Jake Paul. We know who actually has a network behind him. We already know and already knew who the A-side was and who the A-side is. That's why the Furies are still sitting around talking about Jake Paul, but Jake Paul's over it and he's not talking about them.
So when does Tommy Fumbles resume his very serious boxing career?
You take a look at Tommy's social media and it looks a lot like he's working on his tan more than he's working on his boxing. I mean, when is his next scheduled fight now that the Jake Paul fight has dematerialized? When exactly does that go down?
Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury in America sells millions.
It's just more of Tyson Fury's trademark brand of fucking nonsense. A guy who's been getting away with spouting nonsense for years now.
He has.
Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury does what? 1, 2, 3 million pay-per-view buys in America? Are you kidding me? You didn't do 1 million pay-per-view buys with Deontay Wilder.
You fucking fought him 3 times.
It is true that Jake Paul's last pay-per-view, the rematch with Tyrone Woodley, the short notice rematch, it did yield Jake Paul's lowest recorded pay-per-view buys. It did, but it yielded those buys for the same reason that Wilder vs. 3 brought in less buys than Wilder vs. Fury 2. It's because we fucking saw it already. The reported buys for Wilder vs. Fury 2 was something to the tune of 800 to 850,000. That was the second fight, but in the third fight, it brought in considerably less, somewhere around 600 to 650,000 buys. The third fight sold less than the second fight, the same way that
this rematch,
Jake Paul versus Tyrone Woodley 2 sold less than Jake Paul versus Tyrone Woodley 1. But you don't see Jake worrying about what Tommy Fury's doing and when they can reschedule that Tommy Fury fight. I mean, you don't see Jake losing any sleep over it. There's been a bit of a role reversal the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months, when it comes to Jake Paul and, you know, him working with Amanda Serrano, helping to get the Katie Taylor fight over the line, trying to champion that cause for women's boxing. The boxing boxing world is becoming more accepting of Jake Paul, whereas Tommy's become a bit of a joke.
You're still sitting around talking about the Jake Paul fight.
Your motor-mouth brother is. All his fucking nonsense he gets away with saying.
Fucking nonsense. I don't find the least bit amusing.
Do you ever sit down and think about how fucking stupid some of the stuff Tyson Fury says is? This fight would have did millions. You didn't fucking do millions with Wilder in any of those 3 fights, and you're the famous one, not your brother.
So how the fuck would him fighting Jake Paul do millions?
Does that make any kind of fucking sense? You had your dad belly aching about VADA testing and clean athletes ahead of a fight with a YouTuber. Ahead of a fight with a YouTuber. You had your dad doing all that moaning and groaning. You had Tommy haggling about money.
This fucking guy, he ain't even got 10 fights.
Well, what? What? You're the fucking A-side to Jake Paul? Is that what you're trying to convince all of us of? Then why are the offers coming from him and not your team? Your people. It's embarrassing is what it is, and I wouldn't bat an eyelash. I wouldn't lose a wink of sleep if Jake Paul never affords Tommy Fury that same opportunity again, because he's the one that fumbled it after all. Not Jake. And just in keeping with the theme of Tyson Fury's nonsensical ramblings, he very recently told IFL TV it's not my fault that they being Team Usyk, can't fight on March 26th or April 23rd. Usyk, he couldn't be ready till May, the end of May.
Wait a minute, I thought you said the holdup was Anthony Joshua asking for step-aside money.
Too much step-aside money according to you guys, so much money that you called him greedy, and
This is typical of Tyson Fury.
this fucking guy doesn't make any sense, and they let him get away with it.
So wait a minute, was the holdup that the Usyk people wouldn't be ready, or that Anthony Joshua wanted too much money?
It's like this guy's got split personality disorder. You got several sides of the story coming from the same guy. Usyk's side of things via Aegis Climas. He says that
Hey, Aegis Climas blamed Tyson Fury directly. He said he was the holdup.
Aegis Climas, who's not usually involved in these kinds of he said, she said fiascos, these public barbs being traded, he's not usually involved in this kind of stuff. Aegis Climas himself, via his own social media, addressed Tyson Fury directly, saying that he was the holdup.
And I tend to believe Aegis Climas because he's not usually involved in this kind of stuff.
On one end, you're saying that the Usyk people, they weren't going to be ready to fight until May, whilst at the same time saying that the holdup was Anthony Joshua asking for more money. So which one was it? Was it Anthony Joshua asking for more money, or the Usyk people not being ready until May that held up this undisputed heavyweight title fight? Which one is it? Because there seem to be several sides to your own story that are a bit hard to reconcile. This is how much fucking sense Tyson Fury makes. Get a whiff of this.
And I was actually relieved that Eddie Hearn and DAZN didn't put some stupid bid in of 55 million or something, because as we know, they can't deliver, they can't pay the bills, because didn't they win the purse bid for Teofimo Lopez and the other guys? Yeah. Didn't deliver, so it was what it was.
What the fuck is this guy talking about?
Matchroom and DAZN didn't win the purse bid for Lopez versus Kambosos Jr. Triller won the purse bid for Lopez versus Kambosos Jr., and it was Triller that failed to deliver. It was Matchroom and DAZN that salvaged the fight. It was Matchroom and DAZN.
As soon as Triller was found in default by the IBF, Matchroom was able to save him.
And they got the fight over the line in a jiffy, got the fight done in a jiffy, in a timely fashion. They're the reason the fucking fight even happened.
But if you let Tyson Fury tell the story, this is what you get.
And I was actually relieved that Eddie Hearn and DAZN didn't put some stupid bid in of 55 million or something, because as we know, they can't deliver, they can't pay the bills, because didn't they win the purse bid for Teofimo Lopez and the other guys? Yeah. Didn't deliver, so it was what it was.
They let Tyson Fury get away with making stupid and nonsensical comments just like that one, laughing it off as sycophants. The guys who've spent an inordinate amount of time diminishing Dillian Whyte's resume, diminishing his marquee value, only so that after Top Rank and Queensberry win the purse bid, they plead with Dillian Whyte to help them sell this fight.
They want Dillian Whyte to help them promote it.
If all Dillian Whyte stands to make from this fight is his guaranteed price, and he gets no percentage, no share of the pay-per-view's upside, assuming there even is a pay-per-view upside, given the size of the pot and what supposedly Tyson Fury is supposed to be making,
40
if
mil.
there's nothing extra in it for Dillian, then why would you ask him, of all people, to help you promote this thing? Ain't you got Tyson Fury at the helm with his gift of gab? Ain't he the greatest showman on earth? You got two transatlantic promoters on either side of the Atlantic Ocean, and what you're hoping for is that Dillian will help you promote this thing.
Fucking difference would that make? I thought you guys said he was a nobody.
I thought you guys said that he was lucky to be getting offered what he was getting offered, which ultimately isn't even what he ended up getting. He ended up getting more money than he was initially offered by Bob Arum, by Frank Warren. Better still, if he's such a fucking nobody, then why is he all of a sudden so rudimentary to the promotion?
These guys don't make any fucking sense.
Two Hall of Fame promoters, years of experience in the business, who are hoping that Dillian Whyte helps them sell this fight. When, hey, I thought you guys had this all figured out. Dillian's a nobody. Tyson Fury's the biggest draw in heavyweight boxing. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, right?
Right.
Tyson Fury that says he believes Whyte would rank as his 6th best win. It'd probably be Deontay Wilder, then Vladimir Klitschko, then Derek Chisora, then Otto Wallin, then Steve Cunningham, and then him. Now you tell me, based on heavyweight boxing, how much sense that makes when Dillian Whyte has 2 recorded victories over Derek Chisora.
We see how Otto Wallin's been looking.
Bang average with Brazil, less than spectacular with Sokolowski. In fact, the only time Otto Wallin looked anything semblant of a world beater was against you, against Tyson Fury, which begs the question, is Tyson Fury really as good as people make him out to be, or is that all based on how he looked against a one-handed puncher in Deontay Wilder? Oh, now Steve Cunningham's got a better heavyweight record than Dillian Whyte.
Because Spastic Fury says so.
Spastic Fury, who thinks Jake Paul versus his brother, Tommy Fury, would do millions on pay-per-view.
Nobody ever seems to take the time out to survey how stupid some of Tyson Fury's comments actually are.
It's a serious observation, and it's no isolated incident, no remote occurrence. Tyson Fury has been this way for as long as I can remember. A walking, talking, nonsensical contradiction.
His novelty has all but worn off for me.